Joyride 1957, Chapter 15. First light came the next morning at 6 a.m. in Augusta, Georgia. James began to stir, but his beautiful friend remained sound asleep. He eased first one breast and then the other off his chest, kissed each one, and then he eased from the bed. He threw on his clothes as there was just enough light through the window. He grabbed his razor and eased into the bathroom. The floor was squeaky, but his lover didn't stir. When finished, he grabbed his bag and slipped out the door. He threw his bag in the front seat of the Pontiac Star Chief and was about to hotwire the car again. He decided for some reason to look in the glove box. On the inside of the box, he noticed a sign, Property of the U.S. Government, CIA. Laying in the box beside the owner's manual was a set of keys with the Pontiac logo on them. He took the key, put it in the ignition, and the engine came to life. He idled out of the lot, not wanting to attract any attention, and worked his way through the quiet streets of Augusta, Georgia. Finally found the sign directing him to Highway 78. He turned onto the highway and headed west. Only then did he relax. He saw no cars behind him or even in his vicinity. As he got the Pontiac up to speed, the bright crescent of the southern sun peered over the horizon in his rearview mirror. A big smile came to his face. Life was getting a little better. He had made love to the most sensuous woman he had ever met, and he was now all by himself in a beautiful ride provided by his uncle, Sam. The best part of all was he was heading home. He had not been there for some 12 years. Even his ear was healing, and he was finding a few more positions where his ribs didn't hurt. James did not consider himself a religious man. His mother was Catholic and father Lutheran, but after witnessing the carnage on the beaches of Normandy on June 6, 1944, he could no longer find God in his mind. Yet despite all of this, things were going far smoother than even he could have expected. He stared at the sun, now fully above the horizon, in his rearview mirror and whispered, "Thank you." James reached Atlanta by noon, as there was a lot of construction. He grabbed a sandwich and a Coca-Cola at a Deep Rock station and headed west on Highway 78. Due to further construction and traffic delays, he did not roll into Birmingham, Alabama until supper time. He decided to stay in Birmingham and checked into the 13-story downtown Redmont Hotel. He had a steak supper in their restaurant and hit the sack early. He tossed and turned all night, believing the excitement was building as he was nearing his hometown. He rolled out early the next morning and headed southwest on U.S. Highway 11. The big Star Chief's 317 horses were quite thirsty and gulped down a gallon of gas every 14 miles. He arrived at the outskirts of Jackson, Mississippi about noon, found a Sinclair station, and filled the hungry Pontiac with ethyl. It was 29.9 cents a gallon. Then he went across the road to a diner and ate breakfast. He was starved and scarfed down 3 eggs over easy, white toast, bacon, and a double portion of hash browns. He slurped down the last of his Coca-Cola and was back on the road after only a half-hour pit stop. He did not detect any cars following him and was able to slow down to the speed limit so as to avoid getting 1 or more speeding tickets. He hit Shreveport by 6 p.m. and after filling the Chief with more ethyl at a Pure station, turned north on the Highway 71. "Only about an hour, I'll be home." He eased back in the seat, but soon found himself fighting to stay awake. He opened the windows wide, but it was still 84 degrees outside. He cranked the radio full. The dial was set to 870, WWL, New Orleans. The DJ was playing Elvis songs, and the #1 hit, "All Shook Up," was playing. He turned the volume up on full. He shook his head and kicked his foot and took deep breaths. The latter brought an intense rib pain, but that seemed to wake him up, and by 7:30 he could see his hometown in the distance. He slowed to soak in the scene, and inexplicably a couple of tears welled up in his left eye. The sun was low and the shadows as long as he drove into town. Highway 71 became Hickory Street. At the junction with 9th Street, he turned left and then left onto State Line Avenue. He drove slowly south, looking right and then left at all the familiar places. State Line Avenue is right on the Texas-Arkansas state line and divided the twin towns of Texarkana, Arkansas and Texarkana, Texas perfectly. The post office was situated downtown right on the state line, and the street made an oval around that building. He stared at the beautiful flowers surrounding the post office and then at a couple of college girls taking their picture at the famous plaque right on the state line in front of the post office. His passions were without fuel by now, and he drove to the East 3rd Street, parked the Pontiac near the Hotel Grimm, and went into the sumptuous lobby. The manager gave him a room on the top floor with a king bed and said, "Front." James said he would carry his own bag, and the bellboy walked him to the elevator. The two got off on the 8th floor. The bellboy took the key to room 844 and opened it. The room was beautiful with a high ceiling, large king bed, and full bath and bar. James gave him $2 and then grabbed an ice cold Coca-Cola from the bar, lay down on the bed, and was soon dreaming about his CIA agent or two college girls or something.